Okay.
Yeah, so my name's Louis O'Neill and I'm the wildlife ecologist at Mount Gibson. So I'm overseeing the science team here.
Great.
So this week's a pretty big week. We're translocating some of the Woylies from inside the fence onto the outside. So we're scaling up the conservation efforts to landscape wide now, instead of just on the inside of that feral-free fence line.
Great.
Yeah, so the Woylie, or brush-tailed bettong, is endangered in all of Australia and listed as critically endangered in WA. So they had a huge range retraction, mostly from land clearing as well as feral predators, so foxes and cats. They got brought over here after being locally extinct for probably about 100 years. We brought in 162 individuals from 3 different sites, so we've got good genetic diversity. Back in 2015 that all started, and now we're up to over 1,000 individuals. And we've even translocated some over to other AWC properties. So we're helping to re-establish other populations in safe havens across Australia. Yeah, so a Woylie is a macropod, so it looks like a kangaroo, but quite a lot smaller, maybe about 1 metre high, knee high to you, and slightly more hunched over and a little bit rounder than the long elongated red kangaroo that you might think of. So they're quite small, quite cute, weighing in about 1 kilo or so. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they got reintroduced into Mount Gibson in 2015. So just after our feral exclosure fence had been set up and been confirmed as feral predator free. So this is really a momentous moment for conservation here, because we're taking it out of just inside a safe haven with a feral predator free fence. We're now getting into landscape scale, so helping establish these populations to help restore the ecosystem at a larger scale, and they'll expand gradually as the population increases. We expect them to move onto our neighbouring properties, with Charles Darwin Reserve managed by Bush Heritage over to our east, and Nyngan Indigenous Protected Area to our north. So there's really good habitat here, just waiting to be restored with natural ecosystem engineers. All of these Woylies are from inside.
Okay.
Originally back in 2015 through to 18, we reintroduced into Mount Gibson from Crackermire, so the first AWC sanctuary, as well as from Perup, conservation area down south, and Whiteman Park.
Yes.
Whiteman Park in Perth. So at Mount Gibson, we've built a 7,800 hectare feral predator free fence. So that's 43 kilometres long of fencing, 2 metres high, with a floppy top and hot wires, electric wires, to stop any cats or foxes climbing in. So we don't have any feral predators inside, and that's allowed us to reintroduce these species that are very susceptible to predation. So the Woylies have come from inside this safe haven, where they've not had that threat opposing them. So bringing them onto the outside, they are going to encounter cats for the first time. And we control the cat levels through a huge aerial baiting program of 70,000 hectares gets baited. We're running cat trapping regularly, and we've also used Felixes to control cat numbers. And we monitor the cat and fox activity through a wide range of camera trapping protocols. So we've got up to 120 cameras set year-round to monitor the activity of these predators, and that guides us to know how much management we need to be implementing and if it would be safe for the Woylies. If there was too many cats or foxes, then it wouldn't be safe and we wouldn't be proceeding. We wouldn't take that risk with the Woylies.
Great.
So the Beyond the Fence programme, which is really the next step, the 10 species being reintroduced into the area in 10 years, was a huge milestone. The most species introduced into a single site in Australia to date, and it still is at the moment. But now we're moving to the next stage, which is expanding outside of the fence, making it landscape broad, and that's going to help restore ecosystems at a bigger scale and be a real flagship and a guide for future conservation efforts. to know what species can cope with any level of cat or fox activity and to what levels. So we're working with researchers to answer these questions, and we're working closely with the land management officers to control these threats as well.
Great.
But this is the next stage. We've tested it out with brush-tail possums. We released them on the inside and outside the fence, and they were thriving. We've had 3 generations at least. So we've had Mount Gibson born individuals, and then they've had their own offspring as well that we've recorded. We've seen them on camera traps extensively throughout Mount Gibson, as well as onto our neighbouring property at Charles Darwin. And then after that success, we moved on to releasing the Chuditch, which is the western quoll, and they're thriving as well. We brought in 83 individuals from a wide range of source populations, and we've seen them expanding out and out. So they've been all over our property, beyond our fences and beyond our boundaries, over into Charles Darwin again, and up into Nyngan, an Indigenous protected area. And they're breeding successfully as well. On cameras, we've recorded at least 23 Mount Gibson born individuals. So another great success that's showed us this is working. Cats and foxes are under control. And so it's safe to move on to the next phase and bringing in a smaller species, the Woylie, which is known to be at risk from cats. But yeah, we're ready, we're confident this is going to be safe and appropriate. We work incredibly hard to control the cat numbers and fox activity as well. So that involves lots of baiting programs as well as shooting and trapping efforts. So that is working at the moment and keeping those numbers down. But if we were to pack up and stop these activities, then we'd be reinvaded from cats from neighbouring properties and farmland. The cats are not going away, so we need constant effort on the ground to really control those numbers. Until future projects, the gene drive may provide hope in the future, but that's a long way down the line. We need to just keep going and keep maintaining our efforts to control cat and fox numbers. Yeah, so why the Woylie is a good question, because we have other species that we could reintroduce, but the Woylies have been shown to cope with cat activity. So there are populations coexisting with some cats elsewhere in WA. So we know that they do have a capacity to tolerate cat activity, and we have a large abundance of them here. They're a reasonable size, close to 1 kilo, and so they are less susceptible to cat activity than some of the other species that we might release outside in the future.
Okay, from these 5.
Yeah, so another really valuable lesson that we've had is the Woylies actually some of the individuals self-released. So they actually climbed up and out of the fence. And so they've been surviving out and about in the wider environment with cat presence. And they've been there for over 5 years now. So we regularly see them on camera traps, and we see females with distended pouches. So they've got a large pouch young, they're breeding and surviving. And then later in the season, we see females with young at heel. So those young are growing up, surviving, and doing fine. And we've even caught an individual 2 years in a row. So he's surviving at least 2 years and probably longer. So there's evidence that they're surviving here, and cat activity is low enough that they're able to survive on their own. We're just helping that population, increasing the genetic diversity, and hopefully increasing the long-term sustainability of this population.